In Columbia, Coach Beamer is Shane. In Blacksburg, Coach Beamer will always, and I mean always, be Shane's dad.
Yeah.
And that statue out front of Lane Stadium isn't going anywhere.
Welcome to the CL Brown Show. I am your host, CL Brown, columnist with the Courier-Journal. On this episode of the show, I welcome David Teel, a fellow columnist at the Virginian-Pilot. Going to talk about Virginia's big upset win over Florida State last week. We'll talk about the Cavaliers visiting L&N Stadium to take on Louisville on Saturday, and we'll dip into Virginia Tech's coaching search as the Cardinals will play the Hokies in Blacksburg in a few weeks. I'll keep this one brief because we've all heard it before. Bobby Petrino, yes, Bobby Petrino is a head coach again, and he's doubling back. He's getting a second chance at Arkansas, albeit with an interim tag right now, but the reports have been he is vying to try and make that a permanent position at the age of 64. This has got to be the luckiest coach in college football for the amount of chances he's been granted, the amount of passes he's been given, despite the things that have happened in the past. When he left Louisville to go to the Atlanta Falcons, there was the whole. I'm not even sure if I should rehash all of this, but some of you listening probably don't remember or don't know. But there was the flirtation with Auburn that he had, and the lies that were told to then athletic director Tom Jurich about him not meeting when there was a plane waiting for him in Indiana, and he crossed the river to go meet. There was the way he left the Falcons, just kind of a crash and burn situation, really scorched earth. He would never get an NFL head coaching job for sure after the way he just bolted from that organization to go to Arkansas, the way he left Arkansas after having a motorcycle accident, uh, uh, lack of a better word, an affair with an intern who was on that motorcycle, lying to his bosses about the details of what happened to try and cover it up. And it all came out. So even after all of that, he gets another chance at Western Kentucky, coaches there a year, gets another chance at Louisville, helps Lamar Jackson get the Heisman Trophy. He did have some highs when he came back for his second stint at Louisville, but again, it crashed to a 2-8 season and he's out the door. So then he resurfaces at Arkansas as offense coordinator. And I can't say I know any details since he's been back at Arkansas. I can't say if I know that he's changed any, but we've already seen the pattern with Bobby Petrino. In 2025, I feel like why is he still getting opportunities to be a head coach, even on an interim basis? There is enough talent in coaching. There are enough young, up and coming coaches to where we shouldn't still be talking about Bobby Trino, head coach in 2025. But he'll get his chance. He's going to close out the season. Arkansas has lost three straight games. Two of them were one-score games. One of them was to Ole Miss, which is now number 4 in the country. One of them was to Memphis, which is a rivalry game, at least at least from Memphis, the Memphis side of it. I'm not sure how much Arkansas really looks at them as equal, but that makes it even worse because you know you're going into a game where it's kind of a little brother situation almost, where that team really wants to beat you and they come to play, and Memphis pulled it off. And then they got blown out by Notre Dame, which is what essentially ended the term of Sam Pittman as head coach. He finished up his tenure 32-34 at Arkansas. So now they're moving forward. 5 of their remaining 7 games are against teams that are currently ranked. It's starting with Tennessee. They also have Texas A&M, Texas, Missouri, and I'm leaving somebody out. LSU. They play at LSU. 5 ranked teams left. And the 2 games that aren't against ranked teams are against Auburn and Mississippi State, which are both going to be tough games to win, formidable teams. So we'll see how he closes out. Do I think he should get a chance to win the head coaching job? No. I don't care if they go 7-0. I don't think he's got it. I don't think he's capable of We've seen his pattern before, so I don't think he's capable of maintaining a program, especially in this environment with transfer portal and the NIL deals and the payments that are legal now to be made. I think it's too transactional, and I'm not sure that he can handle guys coming and going the way that they do. But we'll see how it plays out. My hat's off to the luckiest coach in college football, Bobby Petrino. Now, let's jump into this interview. And I'd like to welcome back to the show Mr. David Teel, reporter emeritus of the ACC, a Hall of Famer, former USBWA president. Thank you for joining me, David.
My pleasure, CL. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I forgot to add in there, and the all knowing, all knowledgeable man of Virginia sports here. So Louisville is coming into what on paper before the season probably didn't look like a game with a whole lot of stakes, but it certainly is shaping up that way. So I wanted to start with Virginia itself and the season that they're having right now. Coming into the year, was this pretty much put up or shut up for Coach Tony Elliott?
Yes, CL, when you start your head coaching tenure with three consecutive losing seasons, as Tony did, granted with some tragic extenuating circumstances at the conclusion or near the conclusion of his first year, but still, there were questions about he and his staff and whether they were the ones to turn this around. And they have had some moments in other seasons. For example, 2 years ago, they went down to Chapel Hill and beat a top 10 Tar Heel squad, but couldn't sustain it. And the question now is after Friday night's victory over Florida State, can the Cavaliers build upon this momentum and truly turn this into a benchmark season, not only for Tony, but for the program at large?
Yeah. Were you reporting on the Cavaliers back when they were number one in 1990? Were you?
I
Yeah,
was,
okay.
my
I
friend.
thought I didn't want to throw that out there. So
Where do you
just
think this grade came from, man? I've been around.
no doubt, no doubt. Just in terms of atmosphere and the way that victory against Florida State was viewed, how does it kind of compare to program victories, kind of like those milestone victories along the way in history of Virginia?
Well, this was Friday night was the seventh top 10 victory in program history. And coincidentally, the third such win over Florida State.
Oh wow.
Like, bring the Noles to Scott Stadium when they're in the top 10 and UVA is golden. And, as folks will remember, back in 1995, Florida State was 29-0
Yeah.
all time in the conference until a Thursday night when Danny Cannell and the folks lost on the final play of the game to a team with Tiki Barber and Rondi Barber. And I went back and looked. There were 9 first-round draft choices on the field
Oh
that
wow.
night, 30 overall draft picks, and 13 first-team All-ACC guys from that season.
Wow.
That was truly a benchmark game. And you referenced 1990 when George Welsh and company moved to number one in the country. And to me, that is without a doubt the high watermark. Now they closed the season on a slide in part because Sean Moore, their Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback, got hurt, injured the thumb on his throwing hand. But the excitement and buzz around that program at number one, which was, I mean, it was unheard of
Yeah.
and literally unfathomable. And it happened. And, they've had peaks and valleys since, but Friday night, as you saw on television, the field rush and just the atmosphere. Not really close to a capacity crowd. Virginia still has attendance issues,
Hmm.
but it was a big time moment.
Did anybody have a stopwatch on how fast the students got out there rushing the
Oh, that
field?
that was Usain Bolt out of the blocks now, wasn't it? And that's Jim Phillips was there, the commissioner
Oh yeah.
of the ACC. He was there Friday night. He was not amused.
I was gonna say, was how much backlash did they get? I know the fine comes because now
Yeah,
that's in
yeah,
place,
the
and that's
the
kind
fine is
of small
perfunctory and
change. Yeah,
yes, petty cash. But it your point is so well taken. It happened because there's no barrier. That hill is
yeah,
where the students are is right there. There's nothing between them and the field. And then they crowd the back of that end zone and it's instantaneous.
yeah,
And because the game ended in that end zone, that second overtime, in hindsight, it would have been wise for them to stage, and I know it's customary to
flop.
flip ends of the
Mhm.
field for the overtimes. They probably should have done all the overtimes toward the other end zone to
Yeah,
prevent what happened because you've got the FSU receiver and the UVA DB. They're prone in the end zone and they're going like
yeah,
this, right? Just to cover up, to protect themselves from the rush. And some people were hurt, no one seriously, thank goodness. But it was a dangerous situation.
yeah, yeah. I think the Wahoos may have ruined it for everybody else. The way it seems like there's got to be some more precautions put in place after watching that, but. It was a great victory. It was
Mhm.
definitely the I guess biggest surprise to date so far in the ACC, I would say. Um, what do you see from this team moving forward? I wanted to ask specifically about the quarterback,
Yeah,
Chase Mars. It's kind of funny and maybe even ironic that Clemson is taking a little dovetail right now and
yeah.
they're in a little valley and you're watching two people with Clemson ties that are making a mark in Charlottesville.
Right. Chandler Morris, the quarterback, his dad is Chad Morris, the Tigers' former offensive coordinator. And who succeeded Chad Morris as offensive coordinator? Well, none other than Tony Elliott, now, now the Cavaliers head coach. And that connection, that Elliott Morris family connection is what fueled this recruitment.
Hmm.
When Chandler hit the portal for the third time in his career, Oklahoma, TCU, then North Texas, and now UVA. I think I have that sequencing correct. And this is his last year of eligibility, and he viewed this as his, you know, chance to prove himself
Yeah.
back at the Power Four level because he thrived at North Texas last season. And folks may not remember, but he actually earned the starting job at TCU, but got hurt
Yeah.
and then essentially got Wally pipped by the backup, who then goes on to lead TCU to the national championship game. So he just wanted a chance to showcase himself at the highest level again. And wow, is he doing it? He's got a gunslinger's mentality, gets him in trouble now. That last minute pick at NC State is all
Yeah.
that's separating them from being undefeated coming to
Yeah.
Louisville on Saturday. And he threw three picks the other night. Now, one was near the end of regulation when he's just trying to make a play. It was basically harmless because Florida State wasn't going to score to win it in regulation. But the other two picks in the first half cost them dearly.
Yeah.
And that's what he has to be careful with is that he gets so confident in that arm and so confident in his receivers who have made plays for him now. But sometimes discretion is the better part of valor, right?
Indeed. I don't know why I called him Chase earlier. I got too many quarterback transfers in my mind and got it mixed
Oh,
up.
that,
But so defensively, offensively, they are producing, have put up a lot of points throughout.
now you're cutting to the chase here in Seattle.
Yes, how I guess how good can this defense be? Is it ever gonna get to a point where they can win a game off defense, or are they just maintaining on defense and letting their out offense kind of try and outscore teams?
I don't think UVA is going to win many 13-10 slogs. Let's just put it that way. Now, they are getting healthier on defense, specifically with the return the last 2 weeks of Cam Robinson, who's their Mike linebacker, and he's exceptional. Now, he's not at that level yet because he's still working his way back from the broken collarbone that sidelined him for the first part of the season and the last portion of training camp. But he is a big addition back there. And also returning from injury has been Antonio Clary, their veteran safety, whom they lost in the first half against Florida State to a targeting foul. Now, fortunately for Virginia, it was in the first half. So he will be back for the entirety of the Louisville game. He will not miss the first half.
Well, I want to transition before we wrap it up to Virginia Tech because
Sure.
they are in the they are already in coach search mode. First and foremost, and I actually have talked about this on the pod that I feel like more athletic directors will make a quick hook if it's not working, just based on trying to keep their fan base engaged and trying to get
Mhm.
them keep them supporting the program. And it's easier to do that if you're selling the future and hope than
Yeah.
sticking with the guy who's kind of dead in the water, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
where is Virginia Tech at right now in terms of how they're looking to move forward?
Well, it's interesting. Full disclosure, we're talking right now on Monday night. Tomorrow morning, the Virginia Tech Board of Visitors will meet in special session virtually, publicly, to presumably approve $229.2 million in new campus support of athletics over a 4-year period.
Wow.
And this goes back to a presentation that A.D. Whit Babcock made to the group back in August that detailed how far behind Virginia Tech is budget wise its ACC peers. And the board was very receptive to that presentation and now has a resolution before it to consider tomorrow for this new spending plan that they revealed last week. So essentially, what they are going to be doing is hanging a sign on the door that says we are open for business. And I think that message, CL, is for prospective coaches, general managers, athletes, and perhaps most important, their agents.
Mm. Do you have any like front runner candidates that you feel like that people will be throwing these are the names to look out for?
I don't, I don't, I don't think a fair handicapping of the search is possible until
Yeah.
we know, and especially the prospective candidates know, what is the management structure? Is the GM working in concert with the coach? Is the coach reporting to the GM or the AD? Because different coaches will have different preferences as to how that structure
Yeah.
works. But those kind of details have never stopped us from speculating before, have they? Come on, this is what we do.
Exactly.
So, I think you can look at, excuse me, various types of candidates. There are those who are currently out of coaching. Pat Fitzgerald, who just won a huge legal settlement from Northwestern over
Yeah.
his dismissal a couple of years ago. You have Dave Clawson, who left Wake Forest, but might be interested if the situation is right in returning. I think he's very good on TV, but I also think he misses it.
Still got that itch. Yeah.
Yeah, still has that. And I'll tell you somebody else who definitely still has that itch, and that's Jimbo Fisher.
Oh, yeah.
Now, whether he would be a fit in Blacksburg or whether he would even want to return to the ACC, I don't know, because he had issues with the ACC when he was at Florida State and didn't much like that conference affiliation. But that's one group. And then you look at the hot group of five candidates, and maybe they're determined to get a Power Two job, a Big Ten or an SEC gig. But you have, you know, Alex Golish at South Florida. You have John Sumrall at Tulane. Those are the two big names right now. Now you come down a notch just in terms of profile. Somebody you guys saw at Louisville who coaches at my alma mater, Bob Chesney at James Madison.
Oh, yeah.
I
I didn't
mean,
know that was your alma mater. Okay.
it is. You were
CMU.
talking earlier about how Louisville hadn't played anybody. I'm like, he's harsh and
Just
harsh.
power forward, just power forward. They had played power forward. James Madison gave them their best game.
Yeah, and believe me, James Madison, they're good. And I was
Yes.
really impressed with Louisville's defense that night because JMU has some horses on offense now.
Yeah.
And Lubin and Quinn and company, they just shut them down. But you look at Chesney, he lacks power four experience, which might give people pause. But at age, I forget how old he is, but he's still in his 40s or early 50s. He's got like 13, 14 years of head coaching experience at every level, and he has crushed it
Yeah.
at Division III, Division II, FCS, and now at JMU in the group of five. I think he might be a viable candidate. And then you kind of move toward, okay, Virginia Tech is going to put 229 plus million into athletics, presumably a majority of that into football. Might you be able to turn the head of a sitting Power Four coach? And then it gets,
Who is the prodigal son?
oh, okay. You want to go there?
That's the sitting coach I'm talking about.
CL Shane Beamer's not coming home.
Okay.
Okay. And I'll tell you what. Number one, and I spent some time with Shane in Columbia this summer,
Mhm.
in advance of Virginia Tech's opener against South
Yeah.
Carolina. And after those conversations, and after seeing the infrastructure he has in place there, their football operations center is elite.
Yeah.
And they are in the SEC. And look, I know they got drilled by Vanderbilt, and they've since had another setback. They got right a little bit last week against Kentucky, but Shane is making great money there. More important, his wife and his children love Columbia. I mean, he told me his kids would revolt if he tried to move them out of Columbia. And here's something else to consider. In Columbia, Coach Beamer is Shane. In Blacksburg, Coach Beamer will always, and I mean always, be Shane's dad.
Yeah.
And that statue out front of Lane Stadium isn't going anywhere either.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that would be different. I think Shane has reveled in making his own road as a
Mm.
coach. He didn't coach for his dad at Virginia Tech until well into his coaching career. And that was very intentional.
Mm.
He wanted to go out and see how other people did it, and he wanted to prove himself until he came home for a brief spell near the end of his dad's career, because that was a box he wanted to check.
Yeah.
Let's coach with dad and see it until the end at Tech. And then he went off and worked with Kirby at Georgia and with Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma before South Carolina brought him to Columbia. So I don't think that's going to. I'd be
Okay.
very little shocks me, but that one would really surprise me if Shane got in the mix.
That's interesting because I agree with everything you just said. But here comes my
But
but.
okay,
Here
what you
comes the
got
but.
for me?
Things change so fast.
They,
South
they,
Carolina before this season, we were thinking about maybe they're going to have a
yes.
kind of season that could get Lenore Sellers into the
Heisman.
Heisman
Yep.
finalists. They were going to be competing for the college football playoff spot that some people felt like they may have been worthy enough to be in last year. And
Hmm.
certainly if it was 16 teams, they probably would have gotten in.
Would have been in, no
Yes.
doubt.
But the SEC is the SEC every year. And if
The
you
the path to the
get a little
playoff
bit,
would be
yeah,
easier at Virginia Tech.
yes, if you get a little bit behind like they did this year, it's kind of like it's a wrap for the season. So I just wonder if things don't get any better this season. Matter
Hmm.
of fact, if they lose a couple more and it kind of turns on them, I wonder if, you know, Virginia
It's
Tech
it's
can
it's
twist his
it
arm a
is a
little bit.
very fair point. Very fair.
But to
The
your
two
point, though, when you talk about family, that does add another layer to it, to where, yeah, I could see him saying no because of that. But
Yeah, it does. And I believe I have this right, CL. His wife is a South Carolina girl.
okay,
She's from and actually, little enough, Shane was born in South Carolina as well. Um, back when his dad was working at the Citadel for Bobby Ross.
oh yeah,
And but the Power Four names that come to my mind, and they've been very successful where they are. You just wonder if maybe you could move them. Would be a Matt Campbell
hmm
at Iowa State, or a Chris Kleiman from Kansas State.
he's not as hot as he as he was,
No,
but he
right,
is a
but
good name. Like, yeah, if you
he's
could,
won a lot of football games in the
yes,
Little Apple, and
yeah,
oh, by the way, he won a handful of natties at North Dakota State. Now he inherited a ready-made program at North Dakota State, but he still went and won
yeah,
five more
yeah. You still
natties.
got to win.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Well, let me leave you out on this. Is Virginia Tech still a coveted football job that it was when Frank Beamer first retired and the program was still rolling and it was up there and I guess the ACC figured they were going to be competing for titles, in the old divisions in the
Yeah.
coastal divisions with Miami and
Mhm.
that never really materialized the way that we thought it would.
No, it didn't. Justin Fuente won the ACC Coastal in his first season. He was ACC Coach of the Year, and then it never happened after that. I think it can still be a very good job and here's why, especially now with the expected infusion of money. CL, people care about football at Virginia Tech. They care deeply. Stadium seats about 63 and change. The week after Brent Pry got fired, they were playing Wofford, okay? An FCS team, and they still put 57,000 fannies in the
Wow.
seats. Conversely, Virginia had 50,000 in the seats Friday night against Florida
Against
State.
top 10 team. Yeah.
You tell me who cares more about football.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
if I were a coach, now granted, there's an upside and a downside here when people care, but I would sure prefer a caring, potentially angry when things don't go well fan base to an apathetic
yeah.
one.
Yeah. That also goes to my point too. That's why you got to make the move in season nowadays.
Yes.
Because I don't know if there would have been 57,000 if Brent Pry returns for that Wofford game.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And If they had, they'd have been an unruly
Mm.
57,000,
Uncomfortable 57,000.
right?
Indeed, indeed. Well, I actually have gone over my limit. I didn't mean to keep you this long, but this is such great insight you've given into both Virginia and Virginia Tech programs, and I am always thankful for you to join me, and you're always welcome if you have something to say.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. CL, when you text, I answer.
Well, I appreciate that, David. Have a good one, and we will talk to you later on in the season.
Sounds good. Thanks, man.
And now it's time for pickup lines. 5 college football games I will try and pick against the spread and give you some winners in case you partake in these kind of things. Last week I went 3-2. This week trying to get 5-0. Let's start with Louisville against Virginia. Louisville is a 7.5 point favorite. This line has already moved up since it came out initially to the actually recording of this podcast. I've been off on Louisville all year. Louisville is 1-3 against the spread so far this season. I picked Pitt last week, and of course, Louisville covers that spread in a spot where they've always had trouble, at least over the last 12, 13 years playing at Pitt. So I'm still gonna go against them this week. I think the Cards will win the game, but I think it will be closer than 7.5 points. Give me Virginia and that high octane offense. I actually think the better play might be to pick the over in this game. I think it's going to be a lot of offense, but alas, that's not what I'm doing on this podcast in this version of pickup lines. So sticking with Virginia, moving on to Kentucky. They are a 20.5 point underdog at Georgia. It's kind of an oddity, but under Mark Stoops, his whole tenure at UK, their best trend against the spread is against ranked opponents. They're something like 27-16-2, something like that since 2013. And I think that they will continue to have some success covering the spread. And that's a big number. As bad as I think this Kentucky team has been offensively at times, I do think defensively they can kind of keep them in a game and keep it from getting out of hand. And I think that the Cats will stay within this number, even though they're going to get Georgia's probably best effort, at least early on, after the Bulldogs are coming off that tough loss to Alabama last week. Moving on to Texas, a 6.5 point favorite on the road going to Florida. I think the Gators, as much kind of the cloud of uncertainty that's in Gainesville over Billy Napier and his coaching status moving forward this season and against this tough schedule that they've played. Florida's really, I think they've stayed really engaged. I think the players in that locker room have not quit on Billy Napier, no matter what the noise is around the program. And I think they come out and fight. Defensively, they've been solid all year. They've stayed in games because of this defense. I think being at home, they can get a little bit more offense in this game. And I wouldn't be surprised if Florida pulls the upset outright. Texas got a strong defense, but at the least, I think they're going to cover this 6.5 points. So give me the Gators, and I will take those points. Moving on to the big one in the ACC and possibly having some big college football playoff implications. Miami is a 4.5 point favorite at Florida State. Some of the shine of this game got taken off last week by Virginia's upset of the Seminoles in Charlottesville. They're back home in Tallahassee. This is the first time this Miami game has been this big in quite some time. Would have been bigger if Florida State was top 10 still, but nonetheless, I think whoever wins this game is in the driver's seat still, even if it's Florida State with one loss. I think they're in the driver's seat for the ACC championship. So, all that being said, I think Miami is just the better team, and I think they're one of the best in the nations. I think they're a legitimate national title contender. I think they go into Tallahassee and they cover this 4.5 points. So I'm taking the Hurricanes and laying the points. Lastly, Vanderbilt, a 10.5 point underdog at Alabama. Given Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt's quarterback's track record of being a giant slayer, I should lean to the Commodores here, but I'm not. I am on the Crimson Tide bandwagon. Said it last week when I picked them to beat Georgia, which they ended up doing. I think I think Bama's kind of getting confidence, getting their swagger back. That from week one when they lost to Florida State, they kind of took that gut punch, but they've gotten better over this time, and I think that they're going to cover that 10.5. They haven't forgotten how how Vanderbilt embarrassed them last year as a number one ranked team going into Nashville and losing that game and having the Vanderbilt students tear down the goalposts and take them all the way to the river about 2 miles from campus. So crazy scene that's not going to be repeated in Tuscaloosa. So that will do it for pickup lines, and that will do it for another episode of the CL Brown Show. Thank you for tuning in. Please click on those follow buttons to subscribe to the show. Please leave a 5-star comment because we need more love in this world. If not, you can always catch my columns at courier-journal.com. And at the very least, you can sit back, relax, and wait for another episode to drop on Wednesday. Thanks again for tuning in.